Live from our hurricane headquarters with real-time analysis from some of the nation's top meteorologists, this is Tracking the Tropics.
Breaking news on Tracking the Tropics. Ian upgraded to a Category 2 hurricane moments ago with a new track that has shifted a little bit to the east and a projected slowdown near the Tampa Bay area. We're live on Tracking the Tropics to answer your questions and go over this new model data, again, in your hurricane headquarters. Hey there to you folks. JB here with you live on WFLA Now in the Stream Center. Let's send things right over to meteorologist Eric Stone, who's live at the wall with the very latest on this 5 o'clock track update. Ian, now a Category 2 hurricane, Eric.
That's right. Category 2 storm that's now making its way toward the western tip of Cuba. And again, it has really strengthened over the past several hours. It is now a 100-mile-per-hour hurricane as it moves, again, toward the western tip of Cuba. It's a Category 2 storm. Now it's taken a slight turn to the north. So a north-northwesterly turn at 13 miles per hour and 972 millibars is the pressure. So that has also lowered, which means the storm is strengthening. Should be a Category 4 after it passes over Cuba. And then once it gets close to the Bay Area, still a major hurricane. And I hate to say it, but the cone did shift even more to the east. So it looks like with a slowdown of Ian in the upcoming days and the cone being so close to us, we are going to have several hours of wind and rain here in the Bay Area. So again, with Hurricane Ian, we are going to be watching this track as it's ever so close. In fact, maybe even making landfall somewhere in one of our northern counties, Pasco, Hernando, or Citrus County. This is the latest update. Just came down from the National Hurricane Center. So let's take a look at the GFS versus Euro. This is interesting because the GFS previously was further to the west. And now look, the GFS has jogged to the east while the Euro is slightly to the west of where it was earlier. So now we want the Euro to verify because it's several miles offshore of Tampa. And instead of seeing that northeasterly turn like we saw earlier, which I didn't think was going to continue, it goes more northerly once it gets close to Tampa Bay, while the GFS model, yet again, has it pretty darn close to the coast in Pasco and Hernando counties. Model plots, again, unfortunately, shifting off to the east. There's more model plots taking this into the Tampa Bay area and southward than there are taking it into the Panhandle. So, yet again, everything seems to be shifting off to the east. The chance of tropical storm force wind from Naples in southwest Florida all the way to Clearwater, 90 to 100%. This looks like a definite tropical storm and hurricane force wind event here along the coast from Pinellas County, north and even southward. Time-wise, Wednesday at 8 o'clock in the morning, we're going to start to see those tropical storm force winds in Sarasota, Manatee County, maybe a little bit earlier in Sarasota counties by around 10 a.m. to lunchtime in Hillsborough and Pinellas, and early afternoon further north. So let's take a look at our local in-house, the graph model, and it's showing you by Wednesday at 3 o'clock, these are sustained wind of tropical storm force. And of course, this model is very similar to what the cone is forecasting. And yet again, it's really, really going to deteriorate those conditions. By the time we get into Wednesday evening, you see some 70s and even wind speeds upwards of 80 miles per hour as Ian gets close to the Bay Area, even upwards of 90 miles per hour late in the evening on Wednesday. So this is going to be a prolonged wind and rain event, which means along the coast, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw 8 to 14 inches of rain in some areas. Further inland, more like 4 to 8. What we know, it's a rapidly intensifying storm. It's finally got its act together, and now it is a Category 2 storm. Extended duration of wind and rain because of its slow projected movement. Flooding is almost imminent, especially along the coast. We are expecting storm surge at least 5 to 10 feet. The track, it all matters. In fact, if the track goes west 25 miles, conditions will be a lot better. But if it goes east, as it's doing, they could be a little bit worse. Wednesday into Thursday, that is when we're expecting the worst to come from Ian. So once again, the 5 o'clock advisory showing you a 100-mile-per-hour Category 2 storm that will be moving close to the Bay Area with those models very close to impacting directly Pinellas County, Pasco, Hernando, and Citrus counties.
Meteorologist Eric Stone breaking down the very latest for us in the 5 o'clock update. Can we bring up, and I'm going to bring up the correct computer because this is not the correct computer, but I'd like to see the track one more time. And I want to go to that shot that you had, Eric, of it like right over the Tampa Bay area, because this to me is going to be most noteworthy. I want everyone to pay attention, close attention here, because this is the most noteworthy part of this update for me. Of course, we have a Category 2. That was to be expected. We have this wobble a little bit to the east, the track shifting east. But the biggest thing in this update is here.
We're getting there.
Hold on one second, folks.
Yep. The weather computer is awfully tired, and it's got a lot more work to do.
Eric knows where I'm going with this. Mm-hmm. Yeah, take a look. I'm gonna go full screen here so that everybody can see this. Take a close look at this. Between Thursday at 2 in the morning to Thursday at 2 p.m., we're talking about that small movement, that geographical movement from the 3 to a 1. That means that the storm, as the National Hurricane Center track has it, is going to slow down significantly right off the coast of Pinellas County. This is not the situation that we were hoping for. Of course, if you're in the Tampa Bay area, you wanted this track going west. And if you were in the Tampa Bay area, you wanted this to breeze over as quickly as possible. A faster moving storm means less of it sitting on top of your neighborhood. But this slowdown does not bode well if these models do in fact hold up over the next 24 to 48 hours. So what we're going to do here, folks, and if we can maybe pop this back out, Eric, and kind of show the entire forecast cone, what we're going to do is we're going to start asking for your hashtag Hey Eric, hashtag Hey JB, questions and comments. We want to break down this new model data with you. We want to talk about the areas that you want to talk about, the neighborhoods you want to talk about. We're going to be bringing up particular counties. File in if you want your question to be answered on stream. You can use hashtag Hey Eric, hashtag Hey JB, and I believe that Max Defender 8 Chief Meteorologist Jeff Beardelli is going to be joining us here as well in just a moment in the Stream Center. Do you agree with that, Eric, that the biggest thing about this update is this slowdown near Tampa Bay?
That's right. Well, between the slowdown and the fact that the cone once again has shifted to the east to where now it's almost making landfall, whether it be in northern Pinellas, Pasco County, or northward. Again, we're on the east side of the storm. That's the worst side, and the closer the cone gets to us, that's probably a hurricane warning.
Okay, so emergency alert coming in on our phones. National Weather Service, a hurricane warning is in effect for the area for dangerous and damaging winds. This area is issued up to 36 hours before hazardous conditions begin. Urgently complete. Wow, they're all coming in right now. I can't even keep reading it.
And now my graphics have updated, so a storm surge warning is in effect until further notice from Pinellas County. All of Pinellas County is included in that because of the bay. Wind can push water into all of Pinellas County. That is why the whole county is under a storm surge warning. And you see Hillsborough, the western portions of Hillsborough along the waterway, Manatee and Sarasota County, all under a storm surge warning until further notice. Let's click backward. Now, a tropical storm warning. That means tropical storm force wind expected 36 hours or less from now. That would be Wednesday morning at 5 o'clock in the morning, right? From Polk County southward, Hardy, DeSoto, as well as Highlands County. Now we get to the hurricane warnings, right? 36 hours or less from now, so 5 o'clock Wednesday morning, we are expecting hurricane conditions all of Pinellas County, Hillsborough, Manatee, and Sarasota counties. And again, that is until further notice. So this is what we're dealing with from early Wednesday, and it's going to stay with us, unfortunately, through Thursday afternoon because you saw the slow progression of this storm.
I just got 40 emails from the National Weather Service, INWS alerts, hurricane warnings, storm surge warnings issued for the Tampa Bay area. This is now going to elevate, not that it's to any surprise to anybody, but as far as cancellations, closures, airports, and their expected plans and procedures over the next couple of days, zone evacuations. This is all now going to really, we've seen it, begin today and really over the weekend, but expect over the next 24 hours things to really ramp up as far as storm preparations from your county that you reside in and, of course, your the city or town in which you reside. Let's get to your comments. And I also want to know, folks, did you get the alert? Did you guys get the alert? And let us know. You can use hashtag KJB, hashtag Eric. Let us know where you're watching from. The alert is very loud, and it's for good reason. It's to get your attention and let you know exactly what is going on, where your phone is located. So if your phone is located in the impact area, you likely just got that alert. Let us know with a hashtag comment. In our comment section, that's how it works as far as our Q&A. Use a hashtag, ask a question, and then we can pop it up on screen just like this. David from the Facebook Live comment section wants to know, hashtag KJB, is this the official track of the storm, or is it more, or do we have to wait until Tuesday? Basically, what I'm asking is this the official track? And this is the official track.
It is.
It's from the National Hurricane Center. This is it, folks, but there is still some windshield wiper sort of movement possible in the next, of course, 36 to 48 hours with the storm as it gets closer to the Florida Peninsula. And this latest windshield wiper movement was a movement to the east, Eric.
Again,
can we show the cone again here?
Yeah.
Would it be possible?
And the one thing I want to stress is that if you were thinking about evacuating, your window is closing quickly. So it's either today, the rest of today, tonight, or early tomorrow before we start to see conditions tomorrow evening start to go downhill. So 24 hours, you've got less than that before we start to see the breeze pick up, the storms pick up. So if you're thinking about evacuating, you got to do it. You can't wait much longer.
Yeah, the alert just came in for folks like Valerie got the alert in South Tampa. That's where we're located. I'm looking at some others. Susie says that she got the alert. Let's see. Got it in Inglewood, says Lisa. We've got a lot of commenters letting us know that they just got that alert on their phones. That's good because it lets us know the system is working. And that's really important to know that the system is, in fact, working. Very similar to, we asked this from our audience also when we get Amber Alerts, because it's important to know that that system is, in fact, working. Dan Evans, hashtag Hey Eric, how much storm surge do you think we can expect in Hernando County in the Brooksville area?
Brooksville's further inland, right? So if I'm correct, right, JB?
Yeah,
Brooksville's several miles from the coast, so I don't think you'll see storm surge in Brooksville.
Nope.
Hernando County.
It's a good ways.
Yeah.
It's way east of US 19.
Right. Hernando County, definitely 5 to 10 feet. If you live west of US 19, then you've got the potential of storm surge with this one. And I haven't, the warning just barely came down. They'll come up with new totals as the hours progress toward Wednesday and Thursday, but the latest storm surge expectancy was 5 to 10 feet, and that includes Pinellas County, Hillsborough, as well as counties north, Pasco, Hernando, and Citrus.
Let's just call this like it is for our audience. If this model data holds true, Eric, Thursday, Tampa Bay gets walloped. Gets a really hard punch.
If this holds true, I say 8 to 12 foot at least storm surge.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm looking at it.
There's a right hook right to the jaw. That's the type of model this is because of that shift to the east and the slowdown. It's double. It's just not what you want. It's just not what you want.
No.
And while people might see that de-escalate down from a major category 3 to a category 1 and say, oh, that's good news, right? It's not that simple because we're still feeling category 3 impacts when the storm starts to make its arrival in the Tampa Bay area really Wednesday night, right?
Right, and maybe even category 4 because you can see on the bottom of the screen, Wednesday at 2 o'clock, it's still to our south, but again, the wind shifting, around the storm, blowing that water from the southeast to the east into our area as a Category 3 or Category 4 storm. It's just not looking pretty.
Let's go to this comment. Let's go over to Muji. I think it's Muji on. Let's go over and say hello to our commenters on YouTube Live on the WFLA YouTube page. Hashtag HeyJB. If I'm not in an evacuation zone but don't have storm windows, should I leave here in Sarasota? And really, this just comes down to it comes down to individual preferences, right? And it comes down to how close you are to the coast. It's a really big deal.
That's right. You know what I like to tell people, JB? I like to say, if it makes you feel comfortable, if you're at peace leaving, go ahead and do it, because the one thing you don't want to have to worry about is staying at your house, and now you've got a major hurricane hours away, and you can't get out. once you decide to hunker down, that's it. You still have a little window to get out, but it all depends on where in Sarasota you are. The closer to the coast you are, the more likely you're going to be dealing with storm surge. Now, the further south you are, of course, you'll be further away from the eye of the storm, but still, you're under a hurricane warning. That means 75 to 90 mile per hour winds, and we could see wind gusts in the triple digits, 100 miles per hour or more, coastal Sarasota, Manatee, Pinellas counties. So again, if you have any doubt, why not just leave? Why not just evacuate? It'll make yourself feel a lot better.
And your family.
Right.
Feel a whole lot better. We've got similar questions coming in on Facebook Live, in the Facebook Live comment section, also as well in the YouTube Live comment section. Meg is asking on Facebook Live, #HeyJB, how far do you expect the storm surge to travel in St. Pete? So how far inland do we expect it to go? And Rob Reese on YouTube Live, #HeyEric, what do you think about an 8 to 12 foot storm surge and what it looks like for Clearwater Beach proper? Now, Clearwater Beach, St. Pete Beach, they're right there on the Pinellas County coast. They're right next to each other. Again, some of the more beautiful beaches you will ever see in your life right here in the Tampa Bay area, but they are in for a pretty rough week as far as Hurricane Ian is concerned. What do we say, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it, but a lot of the islands, that roadway from Tierra Verde, St. Pete Beach, Madeira, Reddington, all the way up Indian Rocks, Bel Air, Clearwater, that could be and would be all underwater with an 8 to 12 foot storm surge.
Let's go to this one from Norma Lincoln on YouTube Live, coming back to Facebook in just a moment. #HeyJB, will we be safe in Spring Hill, Eric?
Well, you'll be safe from the storm surge, definitely, but I wouldn't be surprised if you did experience hurricane force wind. Now, there's not a hurricane warning in Spring Hill right now, but again, look how much rain you're going to get. At least 8 to 12 inches of rain. There's going to be freshwater flooding in low-lying areas, flooding of rivers. It's hard to say if any one point is going to be safe. But the one thing I can say is, at least you're not going to have to worry about the storm surge, the flooding from the heavy rain, as well as possible hurricane force wind, a little bit further north, a little bit further east away from the coast. But still, even a Category 1, right offshore. I mean, it's almost right along Pasco County and Hernando County.
Is there anything in the model data you've reviewed in the last hour? Sometimes model data can give us kind of hints, drop little hints, breadcrumbs as to what the next track update is going to look like. And look, we've talked about this windshield wiper effect, right? We've talked about this windshield wiper effect going from west to east, east to west. And look, this is not going to be the last time that we see this track shift a little bit. Is it going to shift more to the east? Is it going to shift more to the west? Is it going to speed up? Is it going to slow down? But Eric, is there anything in the model data that you've seen so far this afternoon that shows us a little bit more into the future as to what we can expect, perhaps with the model or the path that we're going to be talking about tomorrow?
So let's take a look at the GFS versus Euro, okay?
GFS in green, Euro in red.
Now, what I'm seeing is the Euro has shifted further to the west. Earlier, we watched this, and we said, okay, everything's going to the north. The Euro was going to the northeast and then hugging the coast. Now, the Euro is a good 50-plus miles offshore, while the GFS, believe it or not, the cone now, JB.
They crisscrossed.
Right. The cone now, JB, is following the GFS model, the one that's been the least accurate. Now, watch as I put it in time. The Euro keeps the storm 50 miles offshore at least. That would be huge. It may only be a 20 to 30 mile difference, but I'm telling you, in the way regarding wind, if this hurricane is 50 to 60 miles offshore, the only place is seeing hurricane force wind for a long period of time is the immediate coast. Of course, that's still bad news, but the way it's looking now, many of us will be seeing it west of 275 in this area, seeing a prolonged hurricane force wind.
I feel cross-eyed.
Crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And the Euro is so beloved because of its past history with accuracy. And look, perhaps if there's a silver lining in this for folks in the Tampa Bay area, it's that the Euro shifted a little bit to the west, but that doesn't mean we're anywhere close to being in the clear because we're still on the bad side of the storm, the dirty side, as they call it, the southeastern quadrant of the storm, which, again, packing quite a punch as far as Thursday morning is concerned. Wednesday, really start to feel those impacts, and then Thursday, right, is when we're expecting
from Wednesday morning, JB,
onward,
all the way through Thursday afternoon. Thanks to that slow track, that's what we can expect the brunt of this. Unfortunately, 24 to 36 hours of this, not just a storm passing by on a Tuesday and by Wednesday there's devastation, but the sun's back out. No, this thing is going to pummel us for over 24 hours because of that slow speed.
If you use hashtag Hey Eric, hashtag Hey JB, the hashtags on your screen, we can answer your questions live. It basically means that we can put your name and your comment up on screen, like with Chrissy on Facebook Live. Hashtag Hey JB, what should we expect over in Ellenton, Eric?
Yeah, so Ellenton, a little bit further to the south. I do believe it's several miles away from the coast. Don't think you'll see the greatest storm surge, but by the time the storm is parallel to you, it's going to be a major hurricane, right? It's going to be a Category 3 or Category 4. So I would expect hurricane force wind. I would expect 70 to 85 mile per hour wind, gusting even higher. That's sustained wind. A sustained wind, like most people haven't been in a 70 mile per hour constant wind. That's not a wind gust. That's constant, and then gusting over 90. So in Sarasota and Manatee counties further to the south, it may be further away from the coast. It's still going to be blowing water onto the coast. But if you're away from US 41, if you're east of US 41, then chances are you're not going to deal with a storm surge, 41 to I-75 and further east. But Ellenton, you're going to be dealing with hurricane force wind and a lot of rain, as much of us will be.
Yeah, it's going to be wet and windy this week, folks, in the Tampa Bay area, to say the least. Let's go over to YouTube Live. Raquel wants to know, hashtag HJB, should a friend from Tampa come down to Sarasota? And there's so many complexities to this question, right? Because it really depends on a lot of different factors. First and foremost, let me just remind our audience, if you are to do any traveling, you're not doing it Wednesday. You're not even doing it really Tuesday night. You want, if you're doing your traveling, that's happening. You're pretty much looking to travel now and into early next morning, right? Because once the storm arrives, you don't want to be caught in this, and you don't want to be in a scenario where you're potentially putting yourself in danger. So if you are going from a place like Tampa down to Sarasota, you're going from one coastal town to another. And so it's important to remind our audience that there's so many other factors that come into play: how far inland the homes are, how protected that area is from storm surge, as far as the area, the proximity to the coast itself, or to the Tampa Bay itself. But what do we say for Raquel and others?
Now, if she's talking about evacuating Tampa to go to Sarasota, that's a definite no.
Yeah.
Is she talking just to go see a friend? If you're evacuating, and I think it's very important, the south and east part of the state, southeast Florida, will be the safest, because this storm is going straight up, not quite the spine, but once it gets into the Tampa area, you see the cone. It's going straight up the middle, right around the Gainesville area, just to the west of Jacksonville. So you don't want to travel too far to the north unless you're going to Georgia, but even Georgia is going to be getting tropical storm force wind in the southern part. In my opinion, if you're evacuating, you go from West Palm Beach down to Fort Lauderdale. You don't even have to go along the immediate coast in southeast Florida. You can go anywhere along, the Turnpike or west of 95, Sunrise, anywhere in that area.
Yeah, it depends on where in Tampa, and it depends where in Sarasota, and it depends like which zone we're talking about evacuation wise. Because look, you do want people to huddle together in homes that are in safer areas than potentially being alone in more dangerous ones. So you have to consider these factors when it comes to traveling from one place to another. What do you have as far as whether you're moving from your home to somebody else's home to spend, to ride out the storm, if you will? It depends on a lot of different factors. Let's get to Casey on Facebook Live. Hashtag HJB. What about Volusia County, Eric?
So that's northeast Florida. Not as bad, not nearly as bad. In fact, if you're Jacksonville, St. Augustine, in that area along the Space Coast.
It's basically Daytona Beach.
Daytona Beach,
Yeah,
okay, yeah. Again, it's going to be a lot better. In fact, you're not going to experience hurricane force wind. Most likely, if you experience tropical storm force wind, it will be mainly wind gust to tropical storm force. As you see, a Category 1 storm still offshore of northern Pinellas, Pasco County. Tropical storm force winds aren't really going to make it all the way to the East Coast, but you will be seeing that rain. Good 3 to 6 inches of rain, and of course, isolated tornadoes. Almost anywhere in the state will have the potential for isolated tornadoes as well. But obviously, in regards to wind, Volusia County, Daytona Beach, anywhere, even St. Augustine area, chances are you won't get the tropical storm force sustained wind.
Let's go to this one from YouTube Live. It's from Nona Barrett, and it says, #KJB, what about the Sept, the Nonasassa area?
So, again, you're not near any bodies of water that you have to worry about a storm surge. But, I mean, you're still in a hurricane warning, right? So you can still be getting sustained winds over 75 miles per hour, gusting to about 90 or so. That is huge. Again, Ian's direct path is so crucial with this, because if that European model that takes this another 30 miles to the west verifies, places like Thonotosassa, Plant City, Brandon, Sept, Dover, you're not going to be seeing hurricane force wind. It'll be more of a tropical storm force wind event. So the track is key, and we still have a couple of days where this could be shifting back and forth.
Yeah, we've got some comments coming in. I do want to focus on Twitter as well. So folks who are really trying to connect with us specifically, if you want to hop over to Twitter for a second, I'm going to spend the next 5 minutes looking over at Twitter comments with #KJB, #KEric. It's a really easy way for us to pull up comments as well, in addition to Facebook Live and the YouTube Live comment sections. But Doghouse is asking a really, man, my goodness, it's the money question. #KJB, what are the odds of this storm changing direction? And the odds, I think it depends on what you consider to be quote unquote changing direction. But right now, if you're looking here at this red area, that's anywhere the eye of the storm, anywhere the eye of Ian can go. So there's still a scenario at play here where we're talking about this, making a turn towards Fort Myers. There's still a situation here where we're talking about this going up to Big Bend. While we're right in the middle of the path, and obviously it looks ominous for the Tampa Bay area, there's still scenarios at play here where it jogs to the west, jogs to the east again sometime over the next 36 hours or so.
That's right. And like I said, the European versus GFS, which I'll get to right here, is a little more promising. That just maybe, keep your fingers crossed, just maybe, says the European is a pretty reliable model, that it will jog back to the west just a bit. As you can see, that GFS model takes it right into the Bay Area and says, hey, I want a vacation here for a few hours. Now I'm going to head to the north, and then eventually moves northward along the coast. Again, these are almost flip-flop models. You think that I changed the red and the green and put them in the opposite, but I didn't. So again, it could change direction. I think the likely change of direction would be more to the north in our favor. I don't think the likely direction would take this east into Fort Myers or east into Sarasota. If it did, it would be a totally different ball game in regards to storm surge, because it would be blowing the water. A storm to our south would be blowing the water away from the coast. So in that respect, if that storm did make landfall in Fort Myers, the storm surge would be 100 times better. In fact, like I said, it would be pulling water from the coast out, and the flooding would be a lot less. We still get the rain and the wind, but you wouldn't get the storm surge. Let's go to the next question, and it comes in again. We're going to try to focus in on Twitter for a moment, and let's start with Michael C. on Twitter. He's at Storm Tracker 64 on Twitter, and he says, please remind folks in mobile homes, regardless of their evacuation zone, to evacuate. Also, have prescriptions for a couple of weeks, important papers available, cash, and a tank full of gas. And what's so interesting about this comment? I'm so grateful to Michael and some of our very, very astute viewers in our comment section across multiple social media platforms, is that we've been doing episodes on tracking the tropics since May. And we've been talking about having your kit ready, and tips just like Michael suggested, we've been talking about.
And the time to prepare was days and weeks ago to have these things in order. Scrambling at the last minute, look, it's inevitable, Eric. People do it. People who don't believe just think that their town is invincible and they're never going to see a storm. Well, it just does. That's not the way that the world works, because eventually a storm is going to come by your neighborhood. You don't know if it's going to be a Category 1, a Category 5, or if it's going to be a tropical depression. You just don't know. But it's so important to be prepared, and we're trying to spread good information here, weather-aware based information, so that you can make those last-minute preparations now. But this information is all great. And let's talk about the mobile homes part of this, because mobile homes are more susceptible when it comes to, and they're more vulnerable when it comes to hurricanes and tropical storms, Eric. And if you're in a mobile home, regardless of your evacuation zone, as Michael puts it, you really got to be careful here. And you have to really think about what you're going to be doing over the next several days. Yeah,
that's right. Mobile homes, modular homes, when it comes to wind, it's not like a big concrete building that's sturdy. And you get hurricane force wind in a mobile home park. You got things flying into it. It's just not safe. And then you bring in the isolated tornado aspect of it, where, winds in a tornado are 100, 125 miles per hour. And it just doesn't bode well for folks in mobile homes and modular homes. And it's just always a good idea in cases like this to evacuate. And, we stress when we do our hurricane special, when I go to a hurricane seminar somewhere and I talk to a bunch of people, the first thing is this: prepare, have a plan, know what you're going to do just in case. And yes, we do procrastinate. I procrastinate on some things. JB, I'm sure, does. We all do. But this is one thing that we just can't procrastinate on and we see it right now because of this situation.
Yeah, there are times, of course, you're sitting at home and you're thinking, my goodness, would I rather watch House of the Dragon, or would I rather, check on my hurricane kit to make sure that everything is there? And 9 times out of 10, you're going to want to, watch Game of Thrones. That's what you're going to want to do. I have not seen the most current episode, by the way, because we've just been in storm coverage mode, but no spoilers for folks joining us in our comments.
I'd rather play the pinball Game of Thrones, but anyway, that's a different story.
One of the best pinball players in the world, folks, on the right side of your screen. I mean, we're a reigning champion how many times over?
A 2-time world champion and the current world champion. I was #1 in the world last year.
That's not fake news.
But
folks.
where comes first?
The world's best pinball player on the planet. He's right there on the right side of your screen. Let's get back to the questions and comments. John Tail, #HeyJB. He's at Googleman245 on Twitter. What kind of winds will Tallahassee be seeing? That's likely where Governor DeSantis will be. Of course, Tallahassee, the state capital. What are we talking about here as far as Tallahassee up on the Panhandle?
Well, the good news for Tallahassee and folks on the Panhandle right now is that the winds will be a lot less. In fact, the storm's going to weaken quite a bit as it makes its way from Tampa up toward even Citrus County as a Category 1. And by the time it's parallel to Tallahassee, and I wouldn't be surprised again if, because of the Euro, what I've seen, if this track, especially the northern portions of this track, moves a little bit to the west. I'm really surprised that this particular cone and track is taking it right over land again, right in the middle of the state, pretty much around I-10, well to the east of I-75, east of Lake City, west of Jacksonville. I would have thought it would have shifted a little bit more to the west, but for Tallahassee, look, it's a 50-mile-per-hour tropical storm, and you're on the west side. Even if you're right in the middle, the east side, the west side, 50-mile-per-hour sustained wind, it's tropical storm force wind. Of course, there's going to be damage, but it's going to be a lot better the further north you are than the further south, especially in Central Florida.
We're getting a lot of comments about Ruskin, including on Twitter. We're gonna stay on Twitter for a little bit longer, and then we're gonna bounce back to YouTube Live. Our YouTube Live audience, please be patient. We will be getting your comments. Facebook Live, we are coming back your way. I'm just trying to service as many people across as many social media platforms as possible. And I am Shanice on Twitter, hashtagging both of us. What's your opinion on the effects of storm surge for Ruskin, Florida?
Yeah, it depends on how far away from the water you are. If you're within a half a mile to a mile, then, storm surge, again, a good 5 to 10 feet. Even in the Bay Area, even in the bays, right? Not just from the Gulf of Mexico. So in the Ruskin area, from what I've been told, some places have already been told to evacuate. If you're one of them, then you definitely want to do that. Otherwise, if you're a little bit further inland, you're not going to deal with as much storm surge, but you're still close enough to the coast where you're going to experience those hurricane force wind.
Let's go to Cordelia on Twitter. #HeyJB to both me and the WFLA Twitter page. Me and my mom live in a trailer park. This is what we were just talking about. How bad is Bradenton going to get hit?
That's right. JB, it's the same thing. The closer to the immediate coast that you are, and I'll show you a close-up right here. Look at the cone, right? Maybe 60 or so miles offshore of Manatee County. The closer to the coast you are in Bradenton, the greater threat of storm surge. If you're a little bit further inland, maybe you're closer to I-75, you won't have to worry as much, not with storm surge, but you're still going to have hurricane force wind. And in a trailer park, that is not where you want to be. Trailer parks, modular home parks, mobile home parks are not the place to be in a hurricane. If you can, you want to be out of there. You want to evacuate. You don't want to be in a trailer park with a hurricane like this coming.
Yeah, we've been talking so much about this nudge to the east, right? And we're getting a lot of questions about Orlando. I'm about to put up a comment on screen from Orlando. I have to walk away for just a second. I need some water. I'm going to grab some water for just a second, but let's first go to Karina here. #HeyJB. How about the Orlando area? Yeah, Orlando right there in Central Florida, right at the center of the peninsula, a little bit more to our east, of course, from Tampa. But now Orlando, we're talking about more significant impacts if this trend of the path going east, decides to hold.
That's right. I still think at worst, we would experience tropical storm force wind in Orlando. My opinion is you'd get wind gusts over 40 miles per hour, but sustained wind 20 to 30 miles per hour in the Orlando area, even given this track, which is still, keep in mind, it's still taking it offshore of west central Florida. So still over 100 miles away from downtown Orlando, right? So again, I don't expect conditions to be really bad in the Orlando area. Maybe tropical storm force wind gust, probably not tropical storm force wind speed. Again, as this storm moves north, and Orlando is slightly north of Tampa, as the storm moves north, it is going to weaken rapidly. For us, that doesn't really do all that much, right? Because it's going to be a Category 3 storm. Places like Orlando, places that are inland and further to the north, probably won't even see tropical storm force wind speeds, maybe wind gust. You will be dealing with a good 3 to 6 inches of rain, at least out of this storm, and you'll have those rain bands with the potential of isolated tornadoes as well.
How rude it would have been if I'd walked back here with a bottle of water and I didn't give one to Eric.
Oh,
here.
Well, thank you. Yeah. All right. These are hard to come by nowadays.
Yeah.
I appreciate it, JB.
Stay hydrated, folks. Stay hydrated out there. Also got some chocolate chip cookies, but we gotta save things for the days ahead. It's going to be a long week here on tracking the tropics. I was listening to your conversation about Orlando. We know that a lot of folks. Orlando is one of the most traveled airports in the southeastern United States. We know that that's going to impact travel. TPA, is going to be, of course, impacted as well. So a lot of potential travel impacts with the system, trending the way that it is. And really, Sophia, we'll go back to YouTube Live. I'm saying hello to our YouTube Live commenters, and then I promise we're coming right back over to Facebook Live. YouTube Live, Sophia, #HeyJB. How bad will Hillsborough County, Tampa, be hit? Yeah, the big question, because it's the most, one of the most populated, cities in the entire state.
Yeah, that's right. Again, storm surge. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw, even in the Bay, 6 to 10 foot storm surge. This storm is going to push water from the Gulf of Mexico into the Bay, into Tampa Bay, into the Hillsborough River, into the waterways, and it has nowhere to go. And what's going to happen is everywhere in our Bay area is most likely going to flood, right? And that storm surge is going to affect everyone within a certain distance from the Bay, whether it be a quarter mile, a half mile, a mile. It all depends on how strong this storm is. Right now, it's looking like a very strong Category 3, at least a major hurricane as it approaches. And the biggest storm surge is going to be when this storm is parallel to our coast and southward. Once it gets to our north, then we'll still have some sort of storm surge. But notice, it'll be a lot weaker, so it won't be quite as bad. But again, the water's got nowhere to go, and it's going to be constantly being pushed in from the Gulf of Mexico into the Bay, and a prolonged period of time, as you can see, from Wednesday to Thursday, 24-hour period of time. This storm doesn't move that much at all, and you can see from Thursday at 2 a.m. to 2 p.m., it moves about 30 to 40 miles.
Let's go to this comment from Jessica. It got kind of, Jessica Hellwarth Rosenbaum on YouTube Live, #KJB. Power outages, almost a virtual certainty at this point.
Yeah.
It's a guarantee to happen. It's just how widespread it's going to be and how long power is going to be out, Eric.
Yeah. Again, you've got a Category 3 on your doorstep. The wind, yes, there's going to be power outages, and that's why the linemen are probably en route to at least Georgia or setting up for us to help us out coming, next week.
Experienced Floridians will know having that generator is going to really help. But folks, those mobile phone batteries, they will really help. I'm serious. They will really help. It's probably too late at this point to get one from Amazon, but you can go to your local pharmacy now, and they've got those mobile phone batteries, your local Walmart or your local Target, and sometimes those batteries can charge your phone 3, 4, 5 times over, depending on how big they are. Make sure you grab them, and then if you got them stuffed in that kitchen drawer, make sure you charge them, because they only hold a charge for really so long. If you haven't charged it in a while, maybe even a couple of years, you want to give it a long. Some of those batteries, Eric, they can take upwards of 12 hours to fully charge. From your outlet. So making sure that you're ready to go in the event that you do lose power. Bev Young, Facebook Live, #KJB. I'm close to the water, but not in an evacuation zone. I'm in Seminole. Will conditions be dangerous?
Yeah. Again, Pinellas County, it's not going to be pretty. The storm is going to move very, very, very close to you. And even if you're not, you may not be, or you may be near water, not be asked to evacuate. But if it makes you feel comfortable and if you feel better and at peace by leaving, then by all means, don't just evacuate. Anyone listening, don't just say, well, they didn't tell me to evacuate, so I'm going to stay. That doesn't mean that conditions won't be dangerous in your neighborhood, and especially with hurricane force wind. If you got the storm shutters, and hopefully you've put them up, that will at least help protect from the windows. But when it comes to water, that water can get in your house, and it can really, really create a bad situation.
Let's go to Just a Weeb on Twitter, #KJB. How powerful will it be by the time it gets to Kathleen? Kathleen, the community.
Yeah, near Lakeland.
Yeah, near Lakeland, about northwest of Lakeland. And also, too, is this an area that could see some isolated tornado threats? I mean, spin-up tornadoes as far as, places like Lakeland, Polk County. What are some areas that – let's first talk about Kathleen, though. Let's get that out of the way.
Let's put it this way. Anyone in the state of Florida could be experiencing isolated tornadoes, all right? That's a given, whether you're on the coast or you're further inland. So let's take a look at Lakeland, Kathleen area. As you can see, tropical storm warning until further notice. Now, the only way a hurricane warning would be issued for inland counties, Polk County, south and east, is if this literally tracks right through the bay and makes that a northeasterly turn and takes a hard right.
Yep.
So Kathleen, Lakeland, yes, tropical storm force wind, but I don't expect hurricane force wind to be moving much, to occur much further than I-75 eastward.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You see, look at Tampa Bay there, right under where it says St. Pete on the map. Everybody, do you see that? It's in this. It's kind of like in this direction. It is like a pathway. That's what Eric's talking about. It's almost like a pathway right into Polk County. If the eye of the storm were to go right into Tampa Bay, impact-wise, what does that look like for us?
Oh, you mean, well, you said Polk County. You mean
no, what I mean is that if the eye continued right through into the heart of Tampa Bay.
Yes.
That would, of course, take it towards Polk County is what I'm saying.
Right.
But what would it look like in Tampa Bay itself if the eye was sitting right on top of Tampa Bay?
You know what the problem is? The problem is that the longer the eye is over water, right,
Yep.
it could continue strengthening. In this case, it's going to encounter a lot of wind shear by the time it gets to us. In a perfect storm scenario, JB, if you had a Cat 4 or Cat 5, the eye of the storm moving through the actual bay where it was still gaining energy from the warm water of the bay, yes, it'd be catastrophic. For Polk County, for Hillsborough County, I mean, the storm surge would be, it'd be out of this world. But the wind would even be worse because it would almost be inland, right? In almost central Hillsborough, and it wouldn't be weakening yet because it'd be over water.
Right. Would the steering currents push it in that kind of direction?
Well, that would be the upper level currents.
Okay.
So right now, again, we saw the Euro model, the upper level steering currents guiding it to the northeast earlier, right? And if, the upper level winds guided a storm northeast into the bay, yeah, I mean, it could happen. With this one, I don't see that happening at all. Definitely not.
Let's go to WA Willoughby on, I think this is Facebook. This is Facebook Live, saying hello to our audience on Facebook Live. Hashtag HeyJB and Eric. What are the projected wind speeds for Waimama and the Riverview area east of Highway 301? I mean, winds, big part of what we're expecting to see, especially Wednesday into Thursday.
Yeah, especially if you're east of 301, you're not going to worry about storm surge. But again, you're close enough that you'll be on that borderline, maybe strong tropical storm force wind. Again, the hurricane warning is in effect for Hillsborough County. So we'll back up into the hurricane warnings right here. So, of course, that does include Riverview. That does include Waimama. It does include east of 301. I think you have a better chance at hurricane force wind in Pinellas County within about 20 miles or so from the Gulf inland. And Waimama is pretty far inland in Hillsborough. So you may get hurricane force wind gust. Strong tropical storm force sustained wind there.
Let's reset for our audience. JB and Eric here with you in the Stream Center on Tracking the Tropics, powered by Handyman Roofing. Can we go back to the cone, Eric, as we kind of break this down for people? So as far as what we have learned in the last 45 to 50 minutes, the 5 o'clock track update came in for the National Hurricane Center. If you're in the Tampa Bay area, look, you've been pushing this thing. You have been trying to use your Jedi powers to push this as far west as possible. I'm sure the people in Panama City don't appreciate the efforts to push it west, but there was really nobody in the Tampa Bay area that wanted to see this track shift to the east. But look, windshield wiper effect in full effect here. It's moved from west, it's moved to east. We have seen it, wobble back and forth as far as the path. It's just not ideal in this particular moment in time. And look, there's going to be some changes to the path itself. However, concerning is the timing of the storm. Wednesday at 2 o'clock, you see it sitting not too far away, I would say, from Fort Myers at 2 o'clock on Wednesday with 130-mile-per-hour winds as a Category 4 hurricane, and then nearing the Tampa Bay area Thursday, really overnight, Wednesday into Thursday as a Category 3, when probably some of the worst impacts are going to be felt is Wednesday night into Thursday morning. And then, look, the heart of that path takes it to right over Tampa, and a slowdown is what we're concerned about because look at the time difference from 2 a.m. on Thursday as a Cat 3, 12 hours sitting right near the bay, potentially with the current model, 12 hours. That's just not what you want. You don't want a hurricane sitting on top of you, and that's currently what we're looking at. We're here with you live on Tracking the Tropics to answer your questions live, and we'll do so with hashtag HeyJB and hashtag HeyEric. Let's continue to take some questions and comments, including from Aaron Johnston on YouTube Live. Hashtag HeyJB, can you talk about the Tampa airport? When will they need to shut down, and what should people flying out to evacuate prepare for?
Well, I would say they would shut it down sometime tomorrow night maybe, right? I mean, the winds are going to start to pick up late in the evening Tuesday. The rain bands are going to start to increase after 5, 6, 7 o'clock tomorrow evening. Once you get to Wednesday, in my opinion, they're going to be shut down Wednesday, Thursday, and probably most of Friday. But I bet you TPA shuts down sometime tomorrow afternoon or later on in the evening. What do you think, JB?
Yeah, I think that TPA is going to try to get as much traffic in and out as possible with safety in mind, but they're going to have no choice but to eventually just kind of shut things down. But you can't just shut down the airport immediately because a system is a couple of days away. Tampa International Airport is going to likely stay open for a bit longer to try to get as much air travel in and out. But at some point, look, if this holds true, they're going to have no choice. And it's not just TPA. Also, don't forget, we've got the airport in St. Pete, and there could be impacts with the 2 airports that we have in the Orlando area. So airport travel is undoubtedly going to be affected. It's just a matter of the speed of this system and how far east it ranges. But we did have a comment earlier, and I don't think it had a hashtag, but it was asking about flying out of Miami. I think somebody had a vacation to Europe. Must be enjoy it. Enjoy your vacation to Europe. You're getting far away from here. But Miami might not have any impacts really as far as the system itself.
When you look at the cone, you think, oh, well, it doesn't look. But look at the size of this storm, right?
The outer bands are going to.
Miami, we're already starting to see from Miami to Fort Myers the cloud cover with this storm. So as it continues to move northward, I mean, those rain bands, they're going to be gusty wind, and those planes from Miami have to get up into that before they can fly up and over it. I think there'll be a lot of impacts in Miami come tomorrow and into Wednesday. Once we get into Thursday, I guess it all depends, JB, whether, what day they're flying to Europe, whether it's Thursday or Friday. They may be in the clear if it's Thursday on.
Ian, when did you get so big?
Yeah.
We were talking about this storm a few days ago and talking about, it was pretty compact. It's not compact anymore.
Yesterday.
Right.
Yeah.
It is growing. Just look at it from satellite here.
Yeah.
So here I am talking about, Miami, you're probably able to fly out okay. But I think it all depends on timing because of what we're seeing. This storm has really grown in size geographically over the last 24 hours.
You know what's funny? People see when they see that little hurricane symbol or they see that little line, and they think, oh, well, I'm not near that hurricane symbol, this and that. But you learn that, boy, I'm 300 miles away from that little hurricane symbol. Cristobal, I don't know if you remember that storm.
I remember Cristobal.
Last year. I was working down in Fort Myers, and I remember we had tornado warnings. And I remember Orlando getting hit with a tornado in downtown Orlando that they had on film. I was watching their Facebook Live while I was at work. So a storm could be several hundred miles away and still spawn up a tornado in your neighborhood. So, it's crazy, the surface area of some of these storms.
I want to remind our audience of a couple of things, and let me see if I can get this to our audience now. This is really important, and I want everyone to think of somebody that they might know where English might not be their first language. Perhaps Spanish is their first language. And we do have this exact program, Tracking the Tropics, in Espanol, Vigilando el Trópico. And I believe that they're live right now. Val Simpson, Jerry Sierra, I believe that they're live right now. So I'm going to just drop this. I'm going to drop this in our comment section, Eric, because it's an important reminder that if people want this information in Spanish, we do have that as well here at WFLA. We're not just talking about our English-speaking audience. We're talking about our Spanish-speaking audience as well. Storms don't care if you speak English or Spanish, and we do have a sizable Latino population in the Tampa Bay area, really in Florida. So it's important that we get this information out. For those of you seeking it in Spanish, please click on the link in the description of this video or in the comments section below. Let me also put that on Facebook Live in a minute. But really important, Eric, that we have Val,
of course,
such a resource on our team, able to illustrate this to our audience in Spanish.
Yes, and she worked for Fort Myers, where I worked at Wink for several years. So she has experience in this area, and she is streaming right now. She had told me about 4:30. Oh, I'm streaming at 5 o'clock in Spanish. Great.
All right, I'm putting that in the comment section on Facebook Live as well. That's the Vigilando el Tropico. And also in the YouTube description on this video, information like evacuation zones, sandbags. You might be asking us questions that answers, they're already published on our website, on WFLA.com, the WFLA app. Our entire behind-the-scenes team working diligently right now to update all that information about school closures, potential road closures, talking about shelters that are going to be opening up, areas to evacuate to, and evacuation zone information based by zone. All that information is on WFLA.com and as well as trackingthetropics.tv. Eric, we're going to stay here with our audience live for a little bit longer and continue to take questions. What's the big thing that people need to be doing like right now when it comes to
Well, if they haven't
storm?
made a decision whether they're going to evacuate or stay in place, you don't have much time. If there's supplies that you need, unfortunately, most places are out of bottled water. You can still get, drinks, snacks, stuff like that. Do it tonight. Don't wait till tomorrow. I mean, don't procrastinate any longer, because once those winds start to pick up tomorrow evening, things are going to deteriorate and they're going to go downhill quickly, and it's going to be too late. And I hate to see people say, "Oh, I should have done that. I should have done this." You still have time to do it. So, don't put it off. If you're going to evacuate, do it,
I think it's important to be making decisions. You should have made decisions a while ago. Let's be real. Okay. But you need to be making the decisions now if you have procrastinated, as we were talking about earlier. Let's go over back to Facebook Live. And Dan is asking, hashtags for both of us, will we see more tornadoes overnight or during the day? Does it matter? Tornadoes, does it matter whether the sun is up or not?
The funny thing is, in a cold front, with the daytime heating, you'll see tornadoes more during the day. But with a landfalling hurricane, it doesn't matter. It's whenever the timing is right for that storm to produce a tornado. Could be during the day, could be overnight. And of course, the overnight tornadoes are the most dangerous, right? Because we're sleeping. So that's why if you have that battery to keep your phone charged, and you have those alerts to wake you up if a tornado warning is issued in your neighborhood, again, that's what you want to do. So day or night.
Yeah. And my goodness, tornadoes are scary enough during the day. At night, when you can hear them, I did briefly, I did storm chasing years ago. And I there were sometimes I did it at night, and believe me, it's more terrifying. Tornadoes are at night when you can more imagine, what that twister looks like. Brandon Allen, hashtag HeyJB on Facebook Live. How's it slowing from a 3 to a 1 so quickly? Can we explain the downgrade from a 3 to a 1 here on the center of our screens,
Yeah,
Eric?
so, wind shear is one thing that kills these hurricanes, right? And there's a trough that's moving, cold front that's moving from north to south. And this storm's going to interact with that cold front late Wednesday into Thursday. And what that is, it's creating a lot of wind shear. Wind shear is the wind blowing in different directions in the mid to upper levels of the atmosphere. It blows the tops of thunderstorms apart. It disrupts a hurricane. And when you have strong wind shear, it can really, really weaken a storm like this. So that is what is projected. Unfortunately, it's projected a little later than sooner, but that is what's going to cause this Category 3 to drop to a Category 1. And again, one of the reasons that it doesn't move all that much in that 12-hour period of time is it's because it's interacting with that front. So the front is pushing one way, the storm's trying to go the other way, and there's a balance. But this storm's more powerful. This time of year when fronts get down into the Bay Area, well, they're weak, right? And a lot of times they stall out. So a powerful storm can kind of push through that front, so to speak. And what's happening is once it interacts, it slows down a bit, but the wind shear and the disruption that's created by that front is what's going to cause this to drop from a Category 3 to a Category 1 in a relatively quick period of time.
I want to talk about some access restrictions that we're getting word of in Pinellas County. Okay. And there's an underlying theme to this notice that has been put out. Pinellas County has access restrictions on several of their most well-known beaches in Pinellas County, starting at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. So 7 a.m. Tuesday, Bel Air Shore, Clearwater, Dunedin Causeway, Honeymoon Island, Indian Rocks Beach, Indian Shores, Madera Beach, North Reddington Beach, Reddington Shores, St. Pete Beach, Tierra Verde, and Treasure Island all will have access restrictions. Okay, why would you want to be heading to the beach at this particular time? I know the answer. And the answer is that we do have a surfing community here in this area. And there are surfers that are going to look at this and see, the potential for waves. But this is going to be a dangerous storm for wherever it makes landfall, and we have to remind our audience to be responsible. And that's exactly why Pinellas County is putting out these restrictions, is because there are going to be people who are going to want to go to the beach, and they're going to say, look, we're ordering mandatory evacuations from their homes. Why are you trying to go to the beach? So let's remind that to our audience, Eric, that the beaches are going to be, they're going to get really rough in the next couple of days.
People don't understand. When I moved down to Florida back in 2012, there was a storm called Isaac. It was a tropical storm, and it wasn't close to Fort Myers Beach. But being a meteorologist, I went out there and I wanted to see what it was like. Now, there were no evacuations, nothing was closed, but sometimes we get a little interested when stuff like this happens. And I'm telling you, if you're ever out in it, it's not worth it. You just don't want to go to a beach, especially with a Category 3 major hurricane on the doorstep. And if they're telling people to evacuate and they're telling you to get off the beaches, there's a reason. They're trying to save your lives. You got to listen. Yeah,
these evacuations, these access restrictions, all of that stuff, it's no fun and games, folks. It's for a very particular reason. Let's go back to our comment section. And, oh, wow, I just made this mistake. Hold on. Wrong comment. Let's get to, I believe this was a different name. Somehow this got, or no, I believe it might have been correct. Allie on Facebook Live, are we okay in North Orlando? All right,
yeah.
This might have been a different name. I'm not sure, but North Orlando. Can we talk about North Orlando, Eric?
Yeah, exactly. North Orlando. There's no tropical storm warnings that are in effect for Osceola County, Orange County, anywhere up there in the Orlando area. So again, I think possibly tropical storm force wind gusts, but not wind speed in the Orlando area. And again, the further north you are, the lesser impacts you're going to feel in the way of wind. So you're going to have a breezy day. You may have a couple wind gusts upward of 35, 40 miles per hour. But again, nothing you can't handle. Now, you will be picking up several inches of rain, but rainy season days, we get several inches sometimes. So it's not going to be catastrophic by any means in Orlando, North Orlando. The further inland, the further north you are.
Let's go to Diana's comment. You might have seen it pop up there. #KJB. What are the chances of the storm shifting towards southwest Florida and entering southwest Florida as a Category 4 system? So what she is asking, if we go back here to the cone, and we'll bring Eric up and we'll take a look at this. You see there right at the bottom of your screen, Wednesday, 2 o'clock. It's at a Cat 4. What she's asking is there a possible wobble way east from that point?
So I'm going to start this cone over again, and I'm going to stop it right before southwest Florida.
Yeah, basically right here.
Right. Well, so right about there. So you see the 4. If this took a turn into southwest Florida, it would be a 4. And you know why? Because you're not encountering the wind shear yet.
Wow.
So there's nothing that's going to weaken this storm. It's going to pummel into Fort Myers, and it's going to go straight through just north of Lake Okeechobee to the east coast, maybe Daytona Beach, Cape Canaveral, and it's going to do something similar to what Charlie did. Charlie was moving pretty quickly. This one wouldn't move quickly if it didn't interact with a cold front. And again, that front would have to be way further to the south, and it would have to be a lot stronger. The year that Wilma, there were so many storms that hit South Florida because those fronts came through and the storms interacted with the fronts, and the fronts are strong in October, November, and it would push the storm northeastward, and the storms would sit and dump a lot of rain in the southern part of Florida. Well, these fronts aren't that strong yet, right? They're not even making their way through. We finally had a day, Saturday, where dew points were in the 60s for the first time. So you're not going to get that turn, in my opinion, into the Fort Myers area. Although Fort Myers, of course, it is still in the cone. But if it did turn, I'm telling you, it would be, if not a Category 3, it would definitely be a Category 4 storm because there's nothing to weaken it until it makes its way north of Fort Myers.
So basically, to sum that up, and correct me if I'm wrong, the more it hooks, the stronger it will be. The more it straightens out and goes north, the weaker it will potentially become because of wind shear. Is that kind of the concept?
So if it stays to the south and moves over Fort Myers.
Right.
So picture a line.
Yeah.
Cutting the state in half from, south of the bay and then north of the bay. Say that front is south of the bay. All the wind shear is from the bay northward.
Can I ask you something? Can you go back over to the wall and show us exactly what you're talking about, like this cutoff point?
Right.
Yeah, let's do that. Because I want everybody to get a good visual look at what we're talking about here.
Let's go back to this. All right. So we'll put this in motion. So say that right here, say the cold front is located right here. All the wind shear is going to be from Tampa Bay northward, right? And we see that the 3 turns into a 1, right? It decreases rapidly. So if a storm stays to the south and moves towards southwest Florida, all this area right here is prime breeding ground, right, so to speak, for this storm. All this area in the southeast Gulf of Mexico, low wind shear, moist atmosphere, right? And a lot of energy coming from the water, oceanic energy, heat energy, we call it. It'll keep it a 4 going into Fort Myers. If it goes straight, it's going to stay a 4 or 3 till this point. If it takes a turn, it's going to stay at a 4 or a 3 until this point. So it doesn't necessarily mean that if it moves more north, it'll be a weaker storm. Once it gets to the point of the front, once it gets to the point of where that strong wind shear is, that is where it's going to weaken. If that point of strong wind shear was here, it would weaken whether it was out of the open water or whether it made landfall in southwest Florida. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. And that's why it's better to have somebody kind of do a little show and tell and show us a little bit more, because that illustrates a lot more clearly what we're looking at as far as whether we're talking about a Cat 4 storm at landfall or Cat 1, because both scenarios are completely at play. Talking about a landfalling Cat 1 or a landfalling Cat 4, and it's very crystal clear, but that's a huge difference for a landfalling storm between a Cat 4 and a Cat 1. Significant impacts regardless, but the strength of the system at landfall there's a wide disparity there, and I find that to be
almost 50 mile per hour, 85 to 130.
Huge. Let's go to Lassa Gardner on Facebook Live, #HeyJB. Will it hit Key West, one of my favorite towns on planet Earth?
No, it's not going to hit Key West. It's going to move to the west. There will be some storm surge, and it looks like there are tropical storm warnings, in fact, for Key West. But besides that, I don't think they'll be getting the strong impacts. So that is good news. This is one of maybe the rare storms that moves towards South Florida that Key West is spared a bit. As you know, most of the storms moving through the Florida Straits or to the East Coast, Key West seems to be one of the first places to get hit. Not in this case.
Hopefully the music at Captain Tony's and Irish Kevin's keeps on playing. Let's go to Lindsay on Twitter, #HeyJB. Can y'all talk about how Ian compares to Charlie or Irma?
Yeah, so Irma came more from the southeast, right?
Yep.
And we were waiting for the turn. And the original, if you remember, the original models took Irma closer to Tampa Bay. Eventually, the models moved to eastward, making landfall in Fort Myers. And what happened was Irma turned a little bit early. It did that little wobble. And I remember it was 12:30 in the morning, and I'm watching the satellite, and it's moving to the northwest. Then all of a sudden, I see it move to the north, and it shifts straight up on that little wobble. And I said, oh, my gosh, if this thing is turning to the north now, then Naples, Marco Island is going to get hit. And I remember posting a Facebook update on this. That is exactly what happened. Charlie was forecast to move into the bay, right? It was supposed to be a really bad storm here. it made a wobble early to the northeast and then went through Charlotte Harbor, Punta Gorda, Port Charlotte area. Now, this storm, it isn't expected to make that northeasterly turn, like that abrupt. It's not expected to make an abrupt turn. It's more of a, okay, we're going north and then slight turn to the northeast. I don't think it's going to be like Charlie or Irma, but no two storms are alike, and no two storms are going to provide the same damage in the same places.
You're talking about that moment where you saw Irma wobble and basically make that turn, right?
Yes.
You know what was happening at that moment? I was in it.
Were you?
I was in it. The flight, the Hurricane Hunter flight. No, I was on the plane. I rode with the Hurricane Hunters, and they schedule every now and again. They schedule reporters to come with them to get a better understanding of the work that the Hurricane Hunters do, flying planes into massive hurricanes. And the flight that Irma made the turn, I was in it, and I just have such a greater appreciation for the unbelievably incredible work that the Hurricane Hunters do, dropping devices into the storm itself to collect the data that we use to talk about these models. Being there in that plane was so humbling, and a big shout out to the Hurricane Hunters. What they do, dangerous, yes. I mean, we're talking about flying into the storm, but one of the most spiritual moments I've ever had in my entire life was after it was 6 hours in, and we emerged into the eye and the Coliseum effect. Google the Coliseum effect, everybody, on Google, and it'll show you the dome of what the eye looks like when you're in the eye. Looking at and seeing that, you feel this big. And big shout out to the Hurricane Hunters, because Irma was a big storm, and getting that data was precious to staying prepared. And they're doing it right now as far as giving us the data that we need for Hurricane Ian. They are true heroes. I really mean it in every sense of the word.
Do you remember the pilot, or who you were with?
I remember. Well, there were several pilots up there in the cockpit. When you go up to the front of the cockpit, they're all up there, and I don't remember their names. I do have a photo with them.
My good friend Paul Flaherty, who I went to college with, used to fly on those Hurricane Hunter flights.
Wow. Yeah, it's when you sit in the cockpit, it's again
spectacular.
It's a humbling experience and makes you feel the size of an ant. It really does when you're inside a Category 5 storm. Let's go to, again, this comment. Kyle on Facebook Live, #KJB. I live outside of the evac zones in St. Pete, but I don't have hurricane windows, and all the plywood is sold out. Not surprised there. Should we evacuate outside an evac zone in St. Pete? Look, so which evac zone is important, Kyle? If you might be in one of the evac zones that is voluntary. There's the mandatory evac zones right now, and the lists are getting updated on WFLA.com and trackingthetropics.tv. But if you're in a mandatory evac zone, look, you should evacuate. If you're in a voluntary evac zone, you probably should evacuate. If you're outside of those zones, and like you said, you don't have plywood and you don't have hurricane windows, Eric, I'll let you give the advice.
Yeah, St. Pete, Southern Pinellas County, they flood in a rainy season day. 3 to 5 inches of rain on a rainy season day, and the streets of St. Pete are flooded, right? It's not a good idea to stay. Even if you did have hurricane shutters, unless you're a little bit higher. I know there's an area of St. Pete that's a little bit higher above, but without the anything to protect the windows, I mean, the chances of hurricane force wind, very, very high in Pinellas County and St. Pete. So if you can, again, make the decision to evacuate, and you want to do it sooner than later, because the last thing you want to be is on the roadway without gas, and here comes a storm, and traffic's backed up, and you're stuck. You don't want that to happen. You want to act now.
Yep, it's really, obviously, extraordinarily important to do so. Let's go to Ryan Farr, Facebook Live. Hashtags for both. What about Homosassa, Citrus County? Let's talk about it for a second.
That's right. Yeah, Homosassa's it's relatively far enough away from the immediate coast that assuming Suncoast Parkway area, where you're not going to worry about storm surge. If you're west of that, then possibly. By the time it gets to Citrus County, Now, look, the cone is showing Citrus County sometime Thursday evening, right? And it would actually be moving pretty much right over Homosassa as a strong tropical storm or a Category 1 storm. Now, did they ask whether they should evacuate or just how conditions would be? If they're asking about conditions, you could see hurricane force wind. You will get some storm surge west of Suncoast Parkway. But again, in Homosassa, you're probably not going to get that storm surge reaching you. It's going to be a weaker storm by the time it gets to you. That's good news. You will be getting a lot of rain, though. So freshwater flooding, a huge problem.
Let's remind our audience that you can use hashtag HeyJB or hashtag HeyEric. I think we might be joined by Jeff Biradelli here shortly. Checking in. Eric, how you doing? You okay? We've been answering a lot of questions today.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah.
Just a check with Eric Stone here, everybody.
I am fine.
We don't take commercials. We just stream.
We keep going.
We keep going.
Yep.
We're like the little engine that could here in the Stream Center. And so hopefully we're being helpful. And I want to just tell our audience, we know that there are hundreds and hundreds of comments that we have been unable to get to. It's we're trying to get to as many as we can. And for commenters that are saying, why aren't they taking this question? There's a couple of different scenarios at play. Either I just haven't seen it at the right time, our team hasn't seen it at the right time, or it's a question that we answered previously in the episode, and we're trying to keep things fresh for our audience as we try to get to as many different sections of the state as possible and answer as many diverse questions as possible. This is a very different format, Eric, than broadcast television. Broadcast television, they tell Eric to go on air for 3 minutes,
right.
and then you're done.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, we'll see you in a few more in the next half hour. But in this format, we're going live for a long period
I really
of time.
enjoy this format, though. I don't mind staying for a long period of time because we're helping people, JB. You know, we may be saving people's lives by answering these questions. So I am all for it.
Yeah, and we'll continue to do so over the days and hours ahead here, folks. Let's go to Susie. Hi there, Susie. I see you coming in here in the Facebook Live, YouTube Live comment section. Hashtag HeyJB, Southeast Polk County. That's way inland.
That's good.
And that's not a bad...
That's where you want to be, JB.
Yeah, you want to be in Southeast Polk County rather than Southeast Pinellas.
Yeah,
County,
I'm assuming around Indian Lake area. Now, there are some lakes in that area, so freshwater flooding could be a problem, but you're not going to be dealing with the wind. Tropical storm force wind possible, but not probable in Southeast Polk. But you will be picking up several inches of rain. I'd say a good 3 to 6 inches, maybe 4 to 8 over the course of a couple days. So imagine a couple of heavy rainy season days over Southeast Polk, right? That's what it's going to look like. It will be a little windy. I wouldn't be surprised if you had some periods of tropical storm force wind gusts, especially late Wednesday night into early Thursday. But then once that storm weakens a bit to a Category 1, then that wind field is going to shrink quite a bit. So Southeast Polk and Highlands County, probably two of the best places to be in this storm.
Let's remind our audience, there's some people who are begging us to take their question, and our hashtag system is in place so that if we put your name on air, on stream, if you will, it's because you want it to be there. So again, please just, we'll try to get to as many as we can, but use the hashtags and we can animate your comment on screen. There's people who are getting frustrated, and it's because they're again, we have the graphics to make this point very, very clear for our audience. Use a hashtag, ask a question. Chandler Hooker on YouTube Live, hashtag HeyJB. I heard that Venice is protected from hurricanes because of ancient burial grounds. Is this true? and if not, do I leave my shed? Look, okay.
Hey, it's good to laugh.
It is good to laugh, but let me remind our audience that there's this belief too that the Tampa Bay area is protected for various reasons or another, and I think that what Chandler is getting at is that there's all of these wacky reasons as to why people think that they're never going to get hit, like ancient burial grounds. There is no place that is really impossible for a hurricane to reach, whether it be Venice, whether it be Tampa. This system anywhere in the red right now is in play. It is.
I lived in Salt Lake City. I went to grad school, and I lived out there for 12 years. And I have a couple good friends. And I called one last night, and I said, "Hey, did you see? You see the hurricane? You see the track?" And he told me. He said, "Well, you're protected by Indians." And I said, "What?" And he said, oh, yeah, don't you know all about that? I didn't know all about that. And now I've heard twice within, a 12-hour period of time that, unfortunately, I don't think that's true.
Yeah, let's be real, folks. There's no ancient voodoo that is going to protect us. This is science, and we're using science to really let you know what Mother Nature is going to do, and Mother Nature is going to do whatever the bleep she wants to do. Let's just be real with our audience. Let's see. Let's get to some other commenters joining us, and let's go to Brian. Brian, #KJB. When is the next update on the track?
Yes, Eric? The updates come out 11 p.m., 11 and 5 o'clock, a.m. and p.m. So the 5 o'clock update just came out, and now we await the 8 o'clock update. The 8 o'clock will not update the cone. It will only update the advisory data. 11 o'clock, we will see a cone update, and hopefully, due to the European and GFS model, hopefully it will shift to the west.
I want to give a quick shout out to Michelle, one of our YouTube moderators, just doing an excellent job tonight, keeping our comment section safe and welcoming and respectful for all. Big shout out, Michelle. Thanks so much for joining us. We're going to do one more on YouTube Live, then we're going to bounce over to Facebook Live. Haven't forgot about you. We're coming your way. Let's go to Bunmaster on YouTube Live. #KJB. Can you please explain storm surge? Is it only regarding the Gulf, or is Tampa Bay affected? And what about rivers? Asking about rivers specifically here.
So basically, the wider the body of water, the better chance of storm surge, right? Imagine a creek that's a foot wide. Wind on a foot wide creek, you're not going to get storm surge, right? Then you picture a river a little bit further out. But here's the thing. Some of these, Tampa Bay they lead to Hillsborough River. So water can get pushed from the Gulf of Mexico into Tampa Bay and into, all these waterways, including rivers, and even further downstream, flood the rivers. But as far as storm surge goes, when the wind pushes the water up over where it's supposed to be, the amount of feet, right, above that is the storm surge. So when we say 5 to 10 foot, it's 5 to 10 foot above where the normal water level would be. And because we have a lot of rivers in this area, the bay leads to the rivers, and the wind is pushing the water from the Gulf into the bay, and then it gets pushed from the bay into different rivers, and it overflows, not only the rivers, but the bay and the whole coastline. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, Kayla on Facebook Live, promised Facebook Live. We're paying attention to the comment section here. Should we be concerned with the Alafia River and the storm surge?
That's up in Orlando, right?
I'm gonna have to triple check, and it's a timely question because we were just talking about rivers and so on and so forth.
I know that name for my pinball escapades up in Oviedo, northeast of Orlando. I thought it was called Alafia, but maybe it's called something. Maybe you pronounce it differently.
No, hold on. I would like our commenters to let us know the correct pronunciation, just so I have it right.
Yeah.
And, you're saying it how so?
I thought it was Alafia.
Okay, it might be Alafia.
But either way, I think it's in the Orlando area, correct?
No, I'm checking. Well, it goes through Gibsonton and Riverview. It might go as far east as that, but it starts at Gibsonton.
Yeah, this is a
Riverview.
different. It's spelled differently too. In regards to storm surge pushing water into the river could flood, right? So we would have flooding of the river because of storm surge water being pushed from the Gulf into the bay and then into the river. I'm not familiar with how wide that river is. You may not get storm surge itself. You may not get the wind pushing the water from that river as a storm surge, but you'll get water pushing from the Gulf into the bay, into the river, and that will cause the river to flood.
Yep. And I think we're getting some correct pronunciations here. Alafia, I believe, is correct.
Okay.
I believe is correct, but you know what? The people that live near Alafia are going to know the correct pronunciation. Yep. It's their river. So let's allow our commenters to chime in here as well. And yeah, Christina is saying here it's the one in Riverview. And really, that whole area should be really heeding the advice of the local EOC as far as evacuations and so on and so forth, as far as what to do and where to go. as far as Hurricane Ian. Delilah. I couldn't help but chuckle here a little bit. Delilah says hashtag hey JB, hashtag hey Eric, hashtag hey anyone. Oh, and it got cut off. Hold on. It was, let's let it finish loading on our screen. This is advanced work that we do here, folks, as far as interactively animating your comments on screen. There it is. What about Newport Richey? Let's talk Pasco County. Pasco County, right there north of Tampa, and definitely right there near the track itself, the center of the forecast cone.
Yeah, definitely. Especially, again, anywhere west of 19 is going to experience some sort of storm surge or some sort of flooding, right? And you can see as a Category 1, and I'll try to advance to the close-up model so you can see how close this is going to be to Pasco County and Newport Richey. But yet again, the latest track is taking this really, really, really close. I mean, the eye of the storm will be very close to impacting Newport Richey. So,
yeah, look at that.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, maybe because it's a little bit further north and it will take the storm a little bit longer to get to you. Maybe they haven't necessarily issued evacuations from Pasco County northward. That may be on the way. But if you're concerned about your safety and you want to evacuate, now is definitely the time to do so. You would have today and tomorrow being in Pasco County, and that would be it.
You know, when you're coming up to your neighborhood stop sign, folks, and you just kind of gradually slow down, that's kind of what Ian is doing on this graphic. It's kind of gradually coming to this slowdown, and in less than an ideal spot, because it's right there near a very populated section of the state, right there. West of the Tampa Bay area, putting, again, the center of this forecast cone with the models as they are now. It's going to wobble. It's going to change speed and probably left and right motion like the windshield wiper effect we were talking about earlier. But Tampa would be on the worst side of this storm, and that's notable, Eric. It's certainly notable. As far as conditions on the west side, what can folks expect?
You know, what's interesting about this storm, and what we call a, quote, symmetric storm, meaning if you look at the center of the system, as far right and as far left as you east and west, you're seeing similar convection. Now, typically the western side of the storm doesn't really feature as much in the way of convection and the heavy rain and the wind and all that. This one, it was funny. Some of the models were showing yesterday that the western side had just as much convection, what we call, thunderstorm buildup activity, rain, as the eastern side of the storm. The good part about being on the western side is that you don't deal with the storm surge, because imagine being here in Tampa, right? We'll put this in motion yet again.
Yep.
Imagine the storm turning into Fort Myers. So pretend Tampa is Fort Myers. Pretend Cedar Key is Tampa, right? Look where the wind is going. It's going around the storm and is pulling water away from the coast. So if Tampa was Fort Myers, Cedar Key was Tampa, meaning if this storm went into Fort Myers and we were on the west side of the storm, we wouldn't deal with storm surge at all. It would be pulling it away from our area. So that is the key of why you want to be on the west side of these storms.
Yep. West, east.
West is best.
West, that's an easy way to remember it.
That's my new slogan.
West is best. East is...
least.
Least desirable.
Yes.
Let's see where that track
East is
shifts.
beast.
So as far as the 11 o'clock update, I'm not sure. So our 11 o'clock update is going to be on air. We're going to be on your NBC station, WFLA News Channel 8. We're not done yet, folks. We're just reminding our audience, because people are going to want to know. As we're talking about the track, they want to know when the next track update is. It is 11 o'clock tonight. I'm not sure if we're going to have streaming coverage of the 11 o'clock update. I think everybody needs a good night, good night rest.
Yes, we've got a lot coming up.
I think we all do. Eric, you deserve it. Hopefully, I think our audience thinks that I deserve it. I think we all deserve a well-deserved good night rest. Wake up tomorrow and then check the progress of the storm. Not to say that if you don't want to be up and check the 11 o'clock update, of course, yeah, we'll have it for you on television, on broadcast TV, on your NBC station, WFLA News Channel 8 in Tampa, Florida. You can also watch on WFLA.com, the WFLA app. But as far as our are tracking the tropics, interactive Q&As and our interactive breakdowns of the track and of the system itself as far as Hurricane Ian goes. That will resume tomorrow. But I think Jeff Beardelli might have an 8 o'clock stream, too. I think he's talking about
Jeff is going to do an 8 o'clock stream, I believe, tonight, but not 11. And one important thing, JB, is I do believe that tomorrow is at 1 o'clock that we're going on air nonstop on WFLA. Wow. So wall-to-wall coverage. You turn on our station, you turn on Channel 8, Great 38, and you're going to be seeing us 24/7 until this storm is to our north and conditions are safe enough.
Yeah, let's get to some of the other comments coming in. That's important to note. And look, if you lose power, you lose access to broadcast television, guess what? We're right here in the palm of your hand. YouTube Live, Facebook Live. What about West Palm Beach, asks Angelica Marie on Facebook Live.
Yeah, someone asked me earlier today, hey, I want to evacuate. Should I go north? And I said, well, the track is going to the north. I said, why don't you go southeast, West Palm Beach southward? So the only conditions I see for West Palm Beach, a breezy day, 10 to 20 miles per hour, nothing you can't handle. But again, you will see some rain bands that come through, and there could be an isolated tornado. Isolated tornadoes are possible from the Keys to Miami to Fort Lauderdale to West Palm Beach to the middle of the state. The entire state with a system like this, can spawn isolated weak tornadoes. But in regards to wind, flooding, obviously there's not going to be any storm surge on the East Coast. West Palm Beach is relatively safe.
Ocala's coming up next in just a moment, but first, Christy Lynn on Facebook Live. Should I be worried about high flooding on the east side of 19 in Pasco in the Holiday area? Now east side is key here as far as, or is it East 19? No, I believe she means
Isn't
east.
Holiday east, west of 19 though?
That's what I'm confused about.
Yeah, the Holiday area is very close to the Gulf.
I'm going to look this up.
See if it's west of 19. The rule of thumb really would be, if you live west of 19, then the storm surge.
Get out of there.
Yeah. Get out of there. If you're east of 19, depending on how far east, you may be a little bit. Obviously, you'll be a little bit better. But in the Holiday area, that is too close for comfort.
No, Holiday. Holiday exists. The municipality itself. There's west side and east side.
And the west side and east side. Okay.
Yep.
Well, definitely freshwater flooding. I mean, with the amount of rain that we're going to be getting, it doesn't matter where you live. Flooding of low-lying areas, if you're near a river, again, they're going to be overflowing its banks. We're going to see a lot of flooding, not just from storm surge, but from freshwater flooding as well. So, yeah, in the Holiday area east of 19, you may not see the storm surge, but flooding is going to be possible anywhere. Think about 8 to 12 to 14 inches of rain falling in a very short period of time. And unfortunately, rainy season it hasn't quite ended, but we're on the tail end of rainy season. So the ground is saturated and moist, and the water just doesn't have anywhere to go. So this dump that we're going to get of fresh water with the rain is really going to create havoc in the way of flooding.
Brittany wants to know about Ocala. Yeah, let's talk about Ocala. A lot of commenters asking about Ocala over the last 15 or so minutes.
Well, yeah, Ocala, great. It's 100 miles or so north of Tampa.
Yep.
Again, the further north you go, the better off you're going to be. So you're not going to encounter a hurricane force wind. You will encounter tropical storm force wind. But again, it's a big difference between 40 to 50 mile per hour wind and 70 to 90 mile per hour wind, because don't forget, those wind gusts are 10 to 20 miles per hour higher than that. You're going to get the rain, of course. So, I can't emphasize enough, freshwater flooding, especially with some of the rivers in the state that are already high. I know in DeSoto County, the Peace River and Horse Creek further north, there's a lot of rivers that already have flood warnings on them. They're close to, overflowing their banks. And this is just going to add, insult to injury, even in places like Ocala. I don't believe there's many waterways going through Ocala, so I don't expect that. But flooding in low-lying areas, you get a foot of rain, it's gonna cause damage.
Let's get to
oh, we got a funny one.
I do. We gotta animate the funny comments on screen every now and again, and it comes from Lil Patty on YouTube Live. Let's go to Lil Patty. Hashtag KJB, hashtag Hey Eric. Question. I'm from Missouri. I have a friend that lives in Mescati, Florida. Is that how you pronounce that? I'm not exactly sure. We're gonna talk about that in a second, but I'm really worried about him. He's a stubborn fart. Got his mama out, but he refuses to leave. What can he expect? Can we just talk about for a moment all the stubborn farts out there? Stubborn farts are a real thing. And stubborn farts don't want to leave because they say this is their home and they're not leaving and they refuse to evacuate. And that can be very foolish. Quite frankly, it can be extraordinarily foolish. And I hope that everybody out there convinces those stubborn farts to see reason. And if they don't, tell them to come hang out with us on stream, and we will illustrate to them why they're in an evacuation zone, why a mandatory evacuation has been issued, because if their house floods and they are stranded, no one is coming to come get you in the immediacy of that moment. I'm talking about first responders. They're not going to be able to get to you because you're in a mandatory evacuation zone and they have to focus on other areas that are going to be more pressing at the time. So it's funny, but it's also serious out there that people really do need to heed these warnings and these evacuation orders and take them seriously. Look, if you're in a voluntary evacuation zone, the key word there is voluntary. You either volunteer to do so and you heed the advice of the local officials, or you choose to, if you think that your building is structurally sound, you've got, shutters up, or you've got, of course, extraordinarily, safe windows in place. Look, that's your decision because of it being a voluntary evacuation. But for the folks that are in mandatory areas, to the stubborn farts out there, I hope you come find us and we will illustrate to you exactly why you're in a mandatory evacuation zone. I will look up that town in the meantime, but you want to add in there?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with mascots, so I would have to. You'd have to look it up and tell me where it is.
Yeah, but, I'm looking it up right now.
Some people are stubborn, and some people I've been
Lake County. So that's
way north. Right?
Yeah, that's west of Orlando, just west of Lake Apopka.
Okay, so what, in the Claremont area, maybe?
Yes,
somewhere around there.
Claremont, Groveland.
Okay,
east of Tarrytown and Linden.
Yeah, so you don't even have a tropical storm warning in effect for you.
It's probably why they're so stubborn.
Which is good.
Yeah.
Tropical storm force wind gust possibly. And again, you're going to see several inches of rain. By the time it's parallel to you, it's going to be a Category 1 at worst, probably a tropical storm, because once it does interact with land, then it will lose a lot of its strength. So it could be anywhere from, looks like, 65 to 75 mile per hour storm by the time it's parallel. But it's going to be so far to the west of Orlando, Claremont area that, I think him being stubborn in this case, as long as he's, got everything he needs just in case his power goes out, for a couple days. But I don't think we'll be seeing all that in Claremont area.
Yeah, so perhaps a little bit of logic behind that person being as stubborn as they are.
But he's
they don't
kind
want
to
to
his
leave.
mother. I mean, at least he's, he took care of her. So
I mean, look, if you were talking about, right there on St. Pete Beach and they were being stubborn, give me their phone number and I will call them personally and say, look, hey, it's JB at WFLA. And I don't care if you've ever heard of me before, but I work with the best weather team in the business. And I'd like for you to know, get the out of there, if you know what I mean. That's just how the kind of person that I am. I'm going to be real with you. And really, for a person up in that section of the state in Lake County, if they're being stubborn, that's just because they're way inland as far as Hurricane Ian. Yep. Joining us, everybody, please welcome in Max Defender 8 Chief Meteorologist Jeff Beer-Adelli.
This is because I work for the CIA. I constantly
always
this
listening.
This is an
in.
IFB that we use so we can hear the producers.
I like the tie.
It's a little
today,
distracting,
Jeff.
isn't it?
I like the tie.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Total A. I love your tie too, Eric.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. We're three guys here with you on stream, and of course we're not just guys here as far as our weather team. We've got, of course, Val Simpson. We've got Amanda Holly, Lee Spann. We've got Rebecca Barry. But with us, guys, it's the boys tonight for the next few minutes. You got till 7 with us, Jeff?
Well, I have a couple minutes. I have to go back down and be ready for the 7, so maybe another 7 minutes or so. I figured I'd just pop in real quick to say hi.
Okay, so as we say hello to you, that 5 o'clock update comes down.
Yeah.
We see that track nudge east.
Right.
We see this slowdown near Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
What are you thinking, and what's your analysis of it so far?
You know, I hesitate to say that it's a worst case scenario because I can definitely think of scenarios that are worse. However, when I compare it to the past 150 years, this is on par with the worst that we've seen in that time. And I think Eric would agree with that if it comes in at this angle. So the 1921 Tarpon Springs storm was a Cat 3 when it made landfall in Tarpon Springs. Now, this actually may weaken to a 2 or a 1 when it actually reaches Tarpon Springs. But the problem is it's sitting off Egmont Key, so the mouth of Tampa Bay, about 20 miles offshore for a long time. It's moving so slow that as it makes its way north through or just to the west of the Bay Area, it's churning up the seas. It's forcing storm surge in. It's weakening our infrastructure with the hurricane force wind gusts. And so although it may not be as strong, let's say, as the Tarpon Springs hurricane, which it may or may not be, we'll see what happens there. It depends upon where it makes landfall. The fact that it's just such a slow-moving storm and it's just relentless with its wind and surge, I think makes it on par with about a worst-case scenario in terms of what we have had in the past 200 years. But without a doubt, you know, Charlie was a stronger storm in terms of its core winds. It was a Cat 4, but it didn't bring that much storm surge with it. This will likely bring a lot more storm surge and less wind impacts, but it could be broader wind impacts, not quite as strong. So my reaction to this is no one who lives in the Tampa Bay area has ever experienced anything like this. And at this point, 5 to 10 feet of storm surge seems likely. And you know, if it takes this track, I have to think somebody gets more than that.
That angle.
Yeah.
This way. This way. I guess this way.
There is actually an angle that's worse. Believe it or not, if you look back at simulated hurricanes over the past, if you just simulate hurricanes, the worst for the Bay Area is it comes straight from the west, straight to the east. That really forces the water in. That's where storm surge gets the worst inside Tampa. It goes from west to east.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, from west to east.
Right,
I'm sorry, I'm looking at your hands. I'm getting backwards.
Yeah, right. It goes just straight across the Gulf into Tampa Bay. That's the worst case scenario. But this is about as bad as that. This, southwest to northeast track.
Yeah, and as far as your confidence in this current track right now, Jeff?
I mean, I have decent confidence in it, but we've seen before with Charlie, with Irma, with Matthew. You can keep naming storms. Almost all of them have a surprise towards the end. Almost every single one has a surprise that comes within 24 hours. And that surprise may or may not be good depending upon where you're watching from. It would be a bad surprise if this hooked towards Sarasota County. Well, one of our models, several of our models, at least a couple of our models, one of them specifically, the model that we use, it's called the graph model, that's showing it hooking in towards Sarasota County. So that would be better for Tampa Bay and Pinellas County, a lot better. But it would be a lot worse for Sarasota County. So, it goes a little bit further to the west. That would be better for everybody in the Bay Area, but obviously worse for the Big Bend. So, you wish it away from your area, but you're wishing it towards somebody else. Unfortunately, yeah.
My goodness. Let's get back to the comments coming in on Facebook Live, YouTube Live. How many minutes do you have with us, Jeff?
Well, I don't know what time is it.
Right now, the time is 6:46 p.m. Eastern.
Like another 3 minutes.
Another 3 minutes. Yeah. Okay, real quick. Let's get to as many as we can. Hashtag HJB and Eric. Any forecast of how many miles hurricane force winds extend from the epicenter of the system once it enters Tampa Bay? Let's bring up both of our esteemed meteorologists to answer this question from Lewis.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's too early to tell.
Mm-hmm. It is. I agree totally. It's going to be bigger than Charlie. Eric, were you in Fort Myers during Charlie?
No, I wasn't.
Eric worked in that area, so he knows Charlie very well.
Yes.
So it's going to be bigger than Charlie. Charlie's winds, the strongest winds, were maybe 40 miles wide in diameter.
Right.
It's a small storm.
It was moving quickly.
I have to think, right, and it was moving quickly. I have to think with this storm, it'll be about twice that. So hurricane force winds will probably end up being about 80 miles in diameter across. So if you think about it, if the eye is supposed to hit Pinellas County and it just simply moves 40 miles west, we don't even get sustained hurricane force winds in Pinellas County. Just a 40-mile nudge in one direction puts you in the hurricane force winds, but out of the hurricane force winds, or less than that. And Eric will tell you just like me, it is totally possible that we will see a nudge of 40 miles. It would be surprising if this thing stayed exactly on course in the middle.
Right. And I don't know if you've seen the latest Euro and GFS. They've kind of flip-flopped, in fact.
Yeah, the crisscross effect that we were talking about earlier.
Now, so now, as we get toward Western Cuba, they're pretty close to each other. And now the Euro is east of, or I should say GFS is east of the Euro, and the Euro keeps this a good, what would you call that? 50, 60 miles offshore all the way up.
Well, I think it's actually a little closer than that. I mean, my estimation is probably about 30 miles offshore.
Okay.
Which would put, and I think I might have measured it before.
Okay.
When I was, So, but you're right. So what the Euro does is it puts the edge of the hurricane force winds onto the Pinellas County coastline, whereas the GFS is right on top of the Tampa Bay area.
Right.
Yeah. But 30 miles makes a big difference. Yeah.
Let's get to this last one before we lose Jeff. And we're this is our last call for comments, by the way. We've got another 10 minutes on stream. We're going up until about 7 o'clock Eastern time, and then I'll explain where our coverage goes from here. But after all, on YouTube Live, JB, Eric, my elderly friend is in an evac zone, but says that she lives in a duplex and will be safe upstairs. Is that true?
I mean, if you're in an evacuation zone, it doesn't matter how many stories up you are. You don't want to be there. Right. So if you're in an evacuation zone, they're telling you to leave. It's best to leave. The people higher up know better than you whether you're going to be safe in a duplex.
Well, and I would say this, if you're an elderly person or if you're in need of any kind of assistance, you are going to be trapped. Yeah. There is going to be no one that can come and help you during the storm. And because this is such a prolonged event, once the surge rises, it could be like that for 12 plus hours. It's going to be hard to get that surge out with the wind constantly forcing the surge in. Now, again, it depends on the track, but especially if you're an unhealthy person, an elderly person, someone who that might need medical attention, no one is going to be able to come to your rescue. That's possibly the biggest consideration is even if you're 3 floors up and you know you're going to avoid the surge, you're trapped with no one that could possibly come get you. That's why we warn you to evacuate.
Yeah, I can't get the pictures out of my head with Katrina of all the people that had 2 or 3 story houses and they're sitting up on their roofs,
almost in the
the water. Yep. And if they tell you to evacuate, it's best to do so.
Let's
all right, JB, I gotta scoot.
Yeah, let's just really quickly. Are you planning to stream
at
8?
Probably around 8:30. Probably around 8:30. Is that
okay? Yeah.
You're the boss, though. 8:30 work for you?
Hey, I'm the boss.
I'm putting you on the spot.
The chief meteorologist said I'm the boss.
Oh, wow.
No.
So
I'm going home to dinner. So you can stream it.
It's going to be probably 8:30 or slightly after that.
Yeah, so around 8:30
Otherwise, I'm going to be in trouble.
so.
I'm going to be in trouble with the real boss. You know who that is, right?
Yeah, I do.
It's my wife.
Yes, I got you. YouTube Live, Facebook Live. Jeff Berardelli will be live sometime between 8:30 and 9 o'clock across all platforms here on Tracking the Tropics and on WFLA Now. We have Exit Cam. Okay. Jeff Berardelli getting back to it, folks, here in our stream center. Another 10 minutes. We're going to try to get to as many of these questions as possible, Eric, before we wrap up this edition of Tracking the Tropics, interactive coverage of the storms, of course, that you need to know about. And Hurricane Ian is the one right now. Let's be real. You need to know about it. Let's go to Joelle Willis on Facebook Live. #HeyJB. What about St. Lucie County?
So St. Lucie's, Port St. Lucie on the East Coast?
Yep.
Yeah. You won't even have tropical storm force wind speed. Most likely not even have tropical storm force wind gust. Much like most of the East Coast, Daytona Beach southward, and you're pretty far south of Daytona Beach, you're not going to feel the wind of this, right? Maybe 10 to 20 miles per hour. It's going to be a breezy day. You'll have some rain bands come in, but again, isolated tornadoes statewide on the East Coast will be really your only threat, as the rainfall amounts will be like a typical rainy season day, maybe even a little bit less once you get from St. Lucie County southward. But again, isolated tornadoes from this storm, that's really about it.
Let's get to this comment from, who's up next? Let's see. Sharon Newton, Facebook Live. #Hey Eric, JB, Jeff. What about Zephyr Hills and Dade City?
The good news is Zephyr Hills, Dade City, pretty far from the coast, so you're not going to worry about storm surge there. And slightly in the northern portions. So it looks like as we, take the closer look at the cone, by the time the storm is parallel to you, it will be a Cat 1. I don't expect much in the way you'll have some hurricane force wind mainly hurricane force wind gusts. I think once that storm, reduces down to a Cat 1, the area where we're seeing hurricane force wind will be extending out of the storm a lot less, right? Fewer miles than when it's a Category 3. So Zephyr Hills, Dade City area, of course, freshwater flooding. You could pick up 8 to 12 inches of rain out of this, maybe even more if it stalls or even slows down. The wind, I would say you'd get hurricane force wind for a brief period of time, but definitely hurricane force wind gusts. Either way, you are in a hurricane warning in Zephyr Hills, right? So hurricane conditions are expected within the next 36 hours, which would put it sometime Wednesday morning or more so into the afternoon on Wednesday.
And Clody River, Pasco County getting a lot of comments without hashtags. What do we say for
about the river?
Yeah, about that area.
Oh,
bad spot, obviously, right? It's a bad spot.
Of course, definitely. There's going to be a lot of rain. There's going to be a lot of runoff, and the rivers just cannot. It's not going to be able to hold all of this coming from Ian with the slow movement. 12 hours, it moves a very short amount of miles, right? 30, 40 miles, if that, in a short period of time, in a long period of time. So you're going to get dumped on. And plus, a hurricane force wind, a likely possibility, in fact, in Pasco County. So, yeah, flooding is going to be a major issue there.
I've got a question that I don't think I've ever seen.
Uh-oh.
We've been doing, this is season 4 of Tracking the Tropics. We have fielded thousands of questions and comments over these last 4 years. And this one I've never seen before, and I'm really thinking about different scenarios with this question. And I don't know how to answer it. Maybe you do, Eric. It's from Birch on Twitter, and it's hashtags for both of us. Is freshwater floodwater safe to drink if it's not seawater?
No, there was a story. There was a story in Fort Myers a few years ago. If you remember the single-celled amoeba, the boy that was playing in freshwater floodwater. Do you remember that?
I don't. That one doesn't ring a bell.
It somehow got inside of his body, his nose, attacked his brain, and the poor boy died. So there are amoebas, there are little organisms in that freshwater flooding because it's runoff, right? It's not just, I'm going to catch rain in a glass and the glass is clean.
It is
runoff. You do
runoff.
not want to play or drink floodwater because you'll ingest, harmful bacteria, organisms. And like I said, I'll never forget that story. A boy that it rained out and he was at the park and he just happened to play in the water like you and I might do when we were kids, right?
Yep.
And the poor boy, he suffered, he passed away.
I'm thinking about kids with this question because look, we've had a lot of pictures that we have shown of on our various digital platforms of Walmart and Target and various places, Publix, places that have been cleared of water bottles. Right. And look, people who have been probably buying more than they really need because they want to be the ones to have a whole lot of water bottles. So I'm thinking about the kids that are really thirsty out there. Look, they shouldn't be in an area that is heavily flooded. Look, the bottom line is don't. And tell your kids not to because I wouldn't do it. And I wouldn't want my family doing it. I wouldn't want my kids, doing it. I don't have kids. But if I did, I wouldn't want them drinking.
No. Birds
that
poop
kind
in
of
it.
water.
I mean,
Yeah,
you just never know.
Yeah,
It's not like you're holding, when we were kids living up north, you stick your tongue out, catch the snowflakes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Harmless.
I did it.
But this isn't that. This would be like, okay, there's snow on the ground for however many, and what are they? The old saying, don't eat yellow snow, right? Same thing. Don't drink floodwater. You remember that saying, JB?
I do. Yeah, and I grew up in New York, so
okay.
Yeah, yellow snow. Look,
There's a lot of it there.
That you come across it more than you would think. Yeah. Answer that question is just no.
Right.
It's no. Looking for some other questions and comments. This is going to be the final one or two that we grab. Let's just find the most current one right now, and grab to. We answered that one though. There's so many of these that we've already answered, and I don't want to continuously repeat ourselves. Ashley Nicole Powers. We'll take this one really quickly. This is near Orlando. Because I know of the airport, Ashley, Nicole Powers. What about Sanford, that area?
Yeah, Sanford is even further north of Orlando. So again, you're going so far north and east of where the strongest part of the storm is going to be. I've got some friends that live in Sanford, and I wouldn't be concerned much at all. I would say I wouldn't even think you would get tropical storm force gusts in the Sanford area, let alone tropical storm force wind speed. Again, the main concern is when rain bands are coming in your neighborhood, possibly isolated tornadoes. But again, they're weak tornadoes. They do cause damage, especially if you're in a mobile home or a trailer park. But in the Sanford area, you know, you'll get some heavy rain. But hey, it's rainy season. We've gotten heavy rain the past several months. You're not really going to get much in the way of wind damage.
Did we talk about Wesley Chapel?
No, we talked about Zephyr Hills, Dade City, but
yeah. So let's talk about Wesley Chapel. Kate Ross wants to know about Wesley Chapel.
Yeah, it's very similar, you know, in regards to the fact that you're not going to worry about storm surge, but you will worry about high wind. I wouldn't be surprised if you had at least Category 1 hurricane force wind in your neighborhood, and of course, it's going to rain 8 to 12 inches or even more in much of Hillsborough, Pasco County. So yes, Wesley Chapel, you're going to be getting that rain and possibly upwards of 75 to 80 mile per hour, you know, wind at the strongest point, but at least hurricane force wind gusts.
Our Giffen on Twitter, #AJB. If the storm surge is in effect, it will be in effect. Could Alligator Alley be unpassable?
Now, you know, I don't know what would have to happen to make Alligator Alley, you know, impassable. You know, the Everglades, there's so many miles between Alligator Alley, and then you've got US 41, aka the Tamiami Trail, that's so much further south of Alligator Alley, right?
Yeah.
So US 41 would flood way before. I don't want to say anything is impossible, but I'd say that's pretty much impossible with this storm, definitely. But with almost any storm, I just don't see how storm surge would go that far to Alligator Alley. I just don't see it.
Hey, Val. Yeah, I don't know if she can hear me. Hey, Val. Can you hear me? Yes. You want to come on over for a second? I would like to put you on camera for a second, everybody. Welcome in, everybody. Val Simpson. For the first time over here with us.
Lady in red.
Yes. Hello.
I wish it was under different circumstances, but
myself as well. We're wrapping up this stream, but I would like for you to have the opportunity in Espanol to remind people that we're also streaming Vigilando el Tropico. So would you, again, that's our Tracking the Tropics equivalent right here. It's right here in the building at WFLA, but we do it in Spanish. Storms don't care if English is your first language or Spanish is your first language. And we have a sizable Latino community here in the Tampa Bay area. That's right. So in Spanish, would you just kind of let our audience know that we have that on our other platforms as well?
Por supuesto, JB, quiero invitarles a todos a que a partir de mañana vamos a estar haciendo una cobertura especial en nuestra plataforma de tampahoy.com, al igual que todas nuestras plataformas digitales y también en nuestra nueva página en YouTube en vivo, donde vamos a estar el equipo ya sea de Noticias Tampa Hoy y también de tampahoy.com. Vamos a estar uniendo nuestras fuerzas para traerles toda la información en nuestro idioma para nuestra comunidad hispana aquí en la Bahía de Tampa sobre este huracán Ian que estamos esperando que impacte ya sea el miércoles o el jueves.
Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you for the space. I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, folks. Give Val and Jerry a watch. If English is not your first language, if Spanish is your first language, really important that you know that Vigilando el Tropico is available to you in the days ahead as Hurricane Ian tracks closer. Val, thanks so much. Let's get back to work. All right, folks, that's going to do it for this particular stream. But our stream doesn't end here, folks, as far as tracking the tropics. Eric Stone and I are taking a break. However, our coverage, it's going to be really kind of around the clock in various forms, right? You're gonna see a lot of graphics play on your screen. If you're joining us on YouTube Live, Facebook Live, we might end this stream and get ready for our next one. I think Jeff Beardelli is next up with an 8:30, roughly 9 o'clock stream. It depends on several different factors, but he'll be preparing for an 8:30, 9 o'clock stream on all of our platforms, WFLA.com, Tracking the Tropics TV, WFLA's app, the Max Defender 8 app, YouTube Live, Facebook Live as well. And it's really important that we communicate to you when our coverage resumes. So, Eric, you and I will be back tomorrow with the rest of the Max Defender 8 weather team here on Tracking the Tropics specifically, and we're going to be picking it up in this format. And who knows what the track will look like tomorrow.
Hopefully further west, JB.
Yeah.
Keep your fingers crossed.
Yeah. Fingers crossed, folks. So give Eric Stone, Val Simpson, Jeff Biradelli, our team, myself, folks, a follow on social media. We'll be trying our very best to update people on our various social media platforms. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I'm trying to get some stuff on TikTok. The problem with TikTok, so weird, is that you post something on TikTok and it will, people will still be watching it. The algorithm is different there. It's not a very topical, current, in the now sort of platform as much as some other platforms are. So we are going to be trying to do stuff with our TikTok account, our WFLA and our WFLA-JB TikTok account. But right now, we're really focused in on interacting with you on Facebook Live and on YouTube Live. A big thank you to Eric Stone, to Val Simpson, and to Jeff Biradelli. That does it for this edition of Tracking the Tropics. And before I go, one last very important reminder. In the YouTube comment section, YouTube description, there's links to sandbags, evacuation zones, what you need in your hurricane kit, all the important resources that we have on WFLA.com as they are being updated, school closures, cancellations, all that stuff is on WFLA.com, Tracking the Tropics TV, and it's also in the YouTube Live description on this video. So give those a click if you're looking for some of that information. Eric, thanks a whole lot, and folks, we'll see you next time on Tracking the Tropics, powered by Handyman Roofing.
Thank you for watching Tracking the Tropics.